Welcome back to tonight. If anybody doesn't have this, let me know. I think you guys do, and you do.
Page 3.
Yes. Well, we're on number 3 of this, which is page 2. Do you not have a page 2?
I don't know.
Here. Well, if you flip that one, I bet you if you flip that one over, you'll find it.
There's 2.
Abraham's faith,
Yeah.
or Abraham's example. That's where we are,
Yeah, some problem.
right?
Yeah, flip it over. Right there.
Yeah.
You're good. We got it. We're good.
You're fine, Father,
I didn't. I thought I was caught up.
well,
Done.
well,
I did more.
we're good. We're probably going to finish this handout tonight. So that's at least my goal. Trying to keep everybody all on the same page between Monday and Wednesday, and my Monday group was able to get through these sets of verses and have some really good conversation, and I'm really excited to have that with you here tonight. So just to kind of recap where we've been, we've talked about how faith is defined as something that can be true or false, right? You're either doing it right or doing it wrong. It's either going to be totally 100% effective or it's dead. There's nothing, there's no saving grace about it. And we've talked about some of the different avenues of air quote faith that people wind up talking themselves into. And last week we talked about a faith that the demons have, where they intellectually know who's in charge, but they are constantly in disobedience over who God is. And we spoke about here last week how, well, we run into some people who claim they're Christians, they can say the right chapter and verse, and yet their actions and their obedience to God, there's no fruit to be found. There's no works to be had. And here we now find ourselves now transitioning, because this is what I love about James. James is not afraid to say, hey, this is where you fall short. James is always going to come back with examples of, but this is the right way. This is how to do this right. And that's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to unearth Abraham's example, which I'm very excited to talk to you about, a story that we all know about with Abraham and Isaac. And we're going to seek to understand what obedience, or how obedience in who God is, transforms one's faith. It doesn't make it easy. Obedience is hard. But the road is narrow, and this is what we've signed up for. So let's hit the ground running. We can't do this without God's help, so I want to encourage you to please pray with me. Father, I thank you for Bible study in which you call us all together to get to know you more here in the book of James. I pray, Lord, that we are challenged by this high standard of faithfulness that you've placed before us, and let us not be people that merely speak the right things, but feel your love in our hearts and are willing to show our faithfulness to you through the works that we do here on earth. Lord, thank you for the examples that we're going to read about tonight that show us what true faith looks like. We praise you and we worship you through this time of study together. In your Son's name, amen. Alrighty, let's take a look here of what living faith is all about as we move on into chapter 2, now starting at verse 21. We're going to talk about a very familiar story. How many of y'all know the story of Abraham and his son Isaac? All of you? Pretty big ask, isn't it? From God to Abraham. And we're going to unearth why this story is so important and how it can show us what true faithfulness actually looks like. Can I have a volunteer read James 2, verses 21 through 24?
Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone.
So we get to this place where we have to keep remembering that what we studied in Romans and what we're studying here in James are opposite sides of the same coin. Remember, what Paul is trying to work through as he writes Romans is a bunch of people who say, I can work my way into heaven. And I don't necessarily have to know God. I don't have to really feel God in my heart. I don't have to be friends with God. I can just do enough good things and get there. And Paul goes, no, 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 no. You need faith. The other side of the coin is what James is talking about to this group of people here in Jerusalem, where you have this declaration from this particular congregation that goes, oh yeah, I know God. Of course, right? They're old school Jews, new school Christians. They know God tremendously, and they know the stories of old. And they go, that should be enough. Hey, after all, like we were part of God's chosen, and now we identify Jesus as Messiah, right? We're in. We have faith, and that's it, right? And there's no works to go along with faith. And we're going to talk about today what I like to equate to in terms of mathematics. How many of y'all were really good at math growing up in school? If I ask you what a proof is, what's a proof in terms of mathematics?
A proof is when you use something that's already known to prove something else is fact.
So we're dipping our toes into places that about 90% of the table doesn't want to go, but here we are. When we wind up solving an equation backwards, right? We have an answer, an assumed answer, and we plug it into the problem, and we go, see, this problem or this answer solves this problem. It's evidence that this number or this measurement is the right answer. It validates the question. Here, we're going to solve the problem of faith much like you would a math proof, where we go, all right, if obedience is this answer, is this figure, let's plug it into the problem. We have the problem of faith and we want to know if it's genuine. All right, let's plug in the factor of obedience and see how it plays out. So James uses the story of Abraham. James points to Abraham here in this passage, whose faith was demonstrated through obedience. Abraham had already believed God, but his willingness to offer Isaac showed that his faith was genuine. His works did not create faith. They revealed and completed it. So there's no amount of works that Abraham was going to do to continue this side of the equation and make it better, right? This is already out here. He's already got faith. He's not going to keep being obedient, and then his faith will be more than what he first began. No, Abraham already believed God. He's already here. Let's flesh this out and take a look window shopping. When you take a look here at this passage in verses 21 through 24, what stands out to you? What's interesting here that James points out?
Well, twice he says you see in 22 and 24.
You see that
You
is,
see it.
yeah,
I'm not just telling you, you see it.
yeah. And these are stories that the people here that are located in Jerusalem would absolutely know about, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, these are the stories they learn about, very similar to us from little up. They know, especially these people know about the forefather Abraham.
Well, up there even in 18, show me.
Yeah.
And now he is.
Yeah.
You see it now.
Yeah.
You see it in Abraham, you see it in Rahab.
Yeah. Good insight. Anybody else here? Anything stands out to you? Nothing. How many of you would want to be called God's friend? I think that's a really cool title, isn't it? I love that he winds up saying this way. Because to anybody on the outside looking in, I think being friendly to the creator of the universe, I think that would be something everybody would sign up for. And it's true, right? We're loved, as Paul writes. We're heirs. We are his children. We're very precious to God. But James makes it super personal and goes, well, yeah, this friendship that Abraham had with God, you can have too. Didn't we talk here? I'm getting my lessons mixed up, but I'm pretty certain we talked about this last week about how what separates Christianity from the pack is our relationship with God, and how it's a relationship. It's something that God wants from you and you desire back from him. I'm getting a lot of Well, that's good. We should be talking more, I think, much like James, about how, hey, I submit to the Lord. I have a healthy fear of him. But man, I'm his friend. Like he loves me, and I can rely on him more than anyone else. How do you feel when James uses this kind of language? When here in verse 23, in the scripture that was fulfilled says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend. What does that do for you as someone who also has faithfulness in the Lord?
Strengthens your faith. Makes you want to have that relationship like Abraham.
It should put some pep in your step, right? Like, yeah, like absolutely. It should make you want to continue to be more faithful. Anybody else?
It makes you want to do God's work.
Should make you want to do God's work. Yeah, simply knowing the Lord didn't get Abraham and Isaac up that mountain, did it? It was obedience, doing the Lord's work that got him up the hill. All right. Our key truth here for this passage is that obedience is evidence of genuine faith. Again, going back to that proof. We've taken this word obedience and we've plugged it into, all right, if this is the trademark of a Christian, then we're going to couple it with their faith and see if it turns out right. And we look at Abraham's story, and most certainly it does. Can I have a volunteer read first here out of our cross references, just to get our minds working again? Genesis 22 verses 1 through 18, just to get us plugged into this story. That's on your last page here. Genesis 22 verses 1 through 18.
After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took two of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you." And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father, "Abraham, my father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." He said, "Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." So they went both of them together.
So, thank you, Adam. With all that said, just kind of bebopping through this section here that we have in number 3, which is between pages 2 and 3 of your worksheet. Your first discussion question: why was Abraham's obedience such a powerful demonstration of faith? Now that we have that whole story there from Genesis 22 read out loud and we remember the words.
He had a lot of reasons to turn around. This wasn't no small journey. Like, you could have turned away day 1 or day 2. And then he thought, well, how am I gonna be a father of many if my son I'm sacrificing? And then I sometimes I think we forget about Isaac. He wasn't no little kid. He had to be willing too. He could be easily, Abraham's 99, 100 years old. More than that. And Isaac had to be willing to want to do it too.
Yeah. There's not a lot I can say piggybacking off of that. That's really good. Anybody else?
It's a lot of obedience. Sacrifice your child.
Especially for someone you've never met.
Yeah. Especially for someone you never met. Yeah. Like, we think about Abraham's encounters with God. How many encounters does Isaac have with God? This would be his first one. And, wow. what a first impression.
But he must have had a good teacher with his dad.
Yes. And we talked about, here I am mixing all my groups together again, but I'm pretty certain we talked about good teachers here in this place. Yes, he had a great teacher in his father to instill this kind of trust.
He trusted in that. He trusted in
And
him.
faith.
Yeah. The thing I marvel at in terms of the story of Abraham and Isaac is that it absolutely foreshadows what God does for us in sacrificing his own son so that the atonement to the sins of the world might, so that the atonement for the sins of the world might take place. Something I stumbled upon earlier this week was someone who took this understanding from the story of Abraham and Isaac and said, God looks at humanity and goes, "You know what, Abraham? I will not make you go through that grief because you've been faithful to me." And then later, as God is all-knowing, he knows he will have to go through that grief himself so that the Father of the universe, the creator of all things, sends his only son so that our sons, so that our children could one day go to heaven. And it is a sobering thought when the guy fleshes it out even more and he says, all those things that Satan winds up telling Jesus out in the desert, and especially the one where he's on top of a great cliff looking over a vast dominion, and Satan looks at him and goes, "Well, if God does love you, you can throw yourself off this cliff and he will come and save you." The thing that Jesus points out is that, well, we're not here to test God. The guy who's talking then says, but God could absolutely do that. It's in his power to do that. When Jesus is hanging on the cross, lamenting and crying out, And there are mockers around him yelling, well, where's your God? Have him come down and save you. As the other sinner upon the cross looks at him and says, aren't you who you say you are? Have your God come down and save us. Well, God could absolutely do that. But he chose to turn his back on his son instead as he died for our children. It's an incredibly sobering thought when we look all the way back to the story of Abraham and God goes, I won't make you go through what I will go through. Here's a ram. Yes, it is an incredible story about Abraham's obedience. It's an incredible story about Isaac's faithfulness. Like everybody had to work together and there was plenty of opportunities to turn around. But when you really flesh it out and take a look at Jesus, you go, wow, like God didn't want us to go through that kind of pain. And he did it himself so that we might benefit. It's sobering. It's incredibly sobering. Well, can I have somebody read a cross-reference here for Genesis 15, verse 6?
Then he believed in the Lord, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness.
So we're just reaffirming here that ticket, right? That thing that makes you worthy, that thing that makes you righteous in the eyes of the Lord. It is faith. But your faith has to be genuine. It has to then lead to being able to walk up the mountain, to not just simply say it with your words, which next chapter we're going to be talking all about how the words in which we say have power and can deceive people. But God knows the heart, right? So there's got to be obedience and action that then follows it. And you're not fooling God when you wind up saying, I'm faithful to you.
There's that phrase, I think it's in the story too, that faith alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Faith always has works.
Yep.
They're twins.
Yep. Verse 24. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. Right? God knows the measuring stick. Like when we confess with our mouths that Jesus is Lord at the very beginning of our journey and we don't have any works to stand for it, God already knows the end of your story. God already knows if there's going to be works or not. God already knows if your heart is going to be obedient. God doesn't need that proof, but we all do because we're not God. This is what James is trying to tackle here by saying everybody's going to wind up looking at you and wondering, is it real? So you're going to need to be obedient. What about Hebrews? Hebrews 11, verses 17 through 19. So now flipping over to the New Testament.
By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises was offering up his only begotten son. It was he to whom it was said, in Isaac your descendants shall be called. He considered that God is able to raise people even from the dead, from which he also received him back as a type.
How incredible is it that, like, one you talked about, there are many opportunities where Abraham could have just turned around. One of the things that kept Abraham on the road was that he had enough faith in God to mentally go, all right, he promised me this promise, and it's through this kid. And God doesn't lie. And so if I have to go up here and kill him, God's probably going to bring him back. Like, how much faith does it take to get through all of that mental hurdle? What a beautiful, reckless faith to just be like, you know, God said this, and now he's telling me to do that. And nothing's impossible with God, so he will keep his promise, even though Isaac is going to be dead. So I guess he's going to raise him back from the dead. When was the last time we believed in God like that? It's sobering. It's incredibly sobering.
So this was outward proof of what happened inside Abraham.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what works are. It's outward proof.
Yep.
It's actually in my study here. I was like, that's odd that he brings that. No, it's not odd. It's natural that you bring up proof. But you're always saying, we need to have proof that we are transformed within when we are convicted by the Holy Spirit,
Yep.
by God, by Jesus, by our faith. Or, it's all.
Yeah.
And the proof is of what's happening inside is going to come out. in
Yep.
What we do, say, how we live, how we work,
So
how we love.
how does so now we're asking that question. All right, if obedience is the proof that works here, that yeah, maybe that's not a good turn of phrase. If obedience here solves this problem of what does genuine faith look like? Well, it's done through obedience, and then through that, after the equal sign, we have works that come out of this. How does obedience strengthen our confidence in God? How do we get across that equal sign? If I have faith plus obedience, and it's going to draw out some confidence in me to do some work, how has that happened in your life? Or how does this happen fundamentally in the heart of a believer? Where have you been confident enough in God to do some big work for him?
I won't say me personally, but our church, when we grew up, our Sunday school class was just, you pulled curtains. And even Bible school, you did it on, you knelt at your chair. We didn't have no place. And so we saved up all this money to build this addition. We finally got enough money, and a Russian missionary said, I need money now to build a church. And we were praying about it, and we're like, we spent all this time, and we decided, yep, we're going to give the money. So we gave the money and started again. And the bids were really high when we were trying to get it. It was too much for us. And we had one contractor on the last day. My dad said, aren't you going to put in a bid? He said, yep. And that amount that he put in was the exact amount that we gave to that Russian church. And he said, we got it all back, every penny.
Wow.
And I know took a lot of faith, because we had waited forever to get that addition, and we were sad that it wasn't there and we had to start all over again, but it took a lot of faith and to wait and do it, because it took us probably another 5 years to get enough money again.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. But you took the leap, right? You went, we know all the stories of God showing up. He'll show up again. And you leap. And sometimes you have to wait a little while before your feet touch the ground again. And for you guys, it was a whole nother 5 years. But God shows up, and shows up exactly how you need him to show up. That's an incredible story. Thank you. Anybody else? Where's the last time your obedience in the Lord strengthened your confidence in him?
Our community meals.
Your community meals.
Started out and just kept growing and growing, and we didn't get scared.
That's a great example. Because we're gathering around the table, and we're plotting out numbers, and we're thinking about ingredients. We go, that's a lot of food. We're going to be able to prep this much food, and two, we're going to have enough people coming to eat all of this food. And both, like, I could speak because I was around the table. We both were like, well, that's what God's calling us to do, so I guess we're going to do it. And there was enough hands to make the food, and all the food was gone way before we thought it would be. And it just stepping out in faith and going, I'm pretty confident God's going to answer this bill. And sure enough, in a mighty way. Stepping out in faith because we're confident that God's going to show up. So now let's flip the coin over. There's plenty of areas in our lives where, yeah, we're confident. We got it going on. There's things about God that we know. Hey, when I go to him in prayer, I know he's listening. When I maybe you're somebody who's walking through unknowns of life, and you go, I'm really good at letting go and letting God. I've seen it happen a bunch of times in my life and other people's lives. Here you go. There are many areas, I'm sure, in our lives where we are confident in the Lord's ability. But let's be honest, we don't have them all covered, right? There's absolutely areas about who God is that we go, I'm not quite sure about that one, because we're all human, and there's room for second guessing, and there's room for taking a look heavenward and going, I'm not really sure. So that's what your third question here is all about. What area of obedience requires trust from you right now? What's something that you're like, hey, I'm not really this isn't really my strong suit in being confident in God's ability, but man, he's putting me through it right now where I have no other option other than to trust him.
It's an angry phone.
It did sound angry, didn't it? Demanding. Wow.
My alarm went off in church.
Oh. That's funny.
I mean, I can let you all know.
Time to get up.
It's time to get up.
I don't know why it was set.
I mean, I can let you all know. Last week, it was a much different time than where I'm sitting before you today. Because I'm a worrier, and if I don't have the future planned out, I get worried, and I hate winging things. And when it comes to our household, that's the last line. Like, stuff at work can go sideways, stuff with friends can go sideways, whatever. If nothing else holds, home better hold. And last week it didn't, and it was miserable till yesterday. We got a phone call, and people that work with Kayla at her facility went to bat with her, for her rather, and manhandled her a job, basically. And they went to an outside group. How it works is it works very similarly to how she was before, subcontracted in. But it's through a company they know and they're familiar with, and traditionally, where she works over at Sunbury does not hire in PAs. They have them subcontracted in. Well, that person that's in charge of all of that decision making was like, you don't need one of those people. And all the people who were in positions of authority in Kayla's work was like, yes, we do. And they went and batted for her and got her a job opportunity at the same place with the same people, just working for a company that won't go, and we're done. And let me tell you, waiting 5 years for things I don't do well with, and because waiting a week had me frazzled, and but yeah, it was, and I know there's many people that aren't as fortunate as we are that wait a lot longer for answers when it comes to employment. But I know for us at home, like, that week was like drinking from a fire hose from God, being like, you don't have it under control and you need to trust me. And it was hard. And I've spent this last week just white knuckling life trying to figure out, all right, the first week of the month is coming up. That's when all of our big bills show up. And here we are. So I know for me, when it comes to not being a worrier, not worrying about tomorrow, that's the obedience where God's calling me out to and going, I know you stink at this and you need to grow here, and here you go. Well, yeah, trips are a different story. Trips are, I have nothing planned until Sunday. Don't ask me for what my opinion is. I do not care. And, but yeah, the obedience that I know in prepping this for this week, I just kind of brought to my knees where I'm like, man, that week long blip of not knowing really was God being like, you really need to work at this. And like being the husband that Kayla needs and being the steady dad that my children need in spite of what my fears are. All of that happened this past week. And old Zach would not have been the person that, through God's grace, Zach was this past week. And yeah, this is a huge, huge week of growth in that regard that I pray doesn't happen again anytime soon. And because I was on.
I knew things were gonna be. Don't ask me how. You were telling me what was going on, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
Than what it was.
It is, and
for you to say that kind of gives me the.
it is. Her. We'll save all the personal stuff at the end if you have any questions. But the reality is like God absolutely knew where I needed to be more obedient in, and like He threw that gauntlet down and was like, here you go. You can't just talk a big game. You actually have to do it too. And so there's plenty of opportunities where our obedience is being stretched, where we lack it. God knows it, and He's gonna shape us and mold us through that. So now plopping the ball in your court. Where does that happen for you? What area of obedience in your life requires trust from you right now? Where you go, hey, I trust in you because I have I normally freak out over this, but Lord, I'm going to be obedient to who you call me to be. I'm going to be faithful.
I would say be more flexible.
Mm.
I like planning things out. I already told you that. And our vacation Bible school is coming up, and we are not organized. I just got a book for it. We're supposed to teach the teens if they come, because we have a teen class. And if that doesn't work, I'm supposed to do the science project. And then we always have to do the skits. And so, I'm like, do I plan for them to be there? Like, how much should I study that lesson? And then the skit we have to make up. So how am I gonna make up that skit? Or
Yeah.
and then if I get thrown into the science, or I could do crafts. Like, I feel like I keep praying to God, like, how do you want me to do this skit? Is it gonna be a skit? And then I'm like, oh, I want to take the easy way out. I want to do every one of them as a puppet show. And I'm like, damn, we could just do a puppet show. We just read off of them. And have to get dressed up. But then
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not up to me. It's up to God. And but I wanted to pick what I want to pick.
Yeah.
So one of my residents said, what you do is you tell God, this is my suggestion in your suggestion box, and then say at the end of the day, and then you feel like you told God, but you didn't really.
I love it. Drop in a suggestion in the suggestion box. I love it. Oh.
And I'm so right there with you because, but thanks, and I've been going over and over all the stuff you guys gave me. I have sorted and separated it and figured it all out and worked really hard, and now I'm working on what I can say and how to shorten it. Everything you said, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But Don goes, well, you're going to do the tokens, because the last 2 years I've done a token for the kids to take home. Just something small that they can take home and remember the story. Or, Mom and Dad will say, we'll give you that whistle that blows. Well, that was part of our story, Mom and Dad. It's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we always had tokens when I was little to take home instead of papers. Something
Thinking of
visible
Emmett.
to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Whistle.
Oh, yeah.
But Don goes, well, you're going to do those tokens again this year. And I told, usually she buys them. And she goes, well, you just decide what you want to do and what you think is good. And send in the bill to Jerry and let him know. And then I said, well, how many kids do we have? So I ordered based on what we had last year. But when I asked her, well, how many kids are signed up? And she goes, none.
Oh,
So I ordered.
it's super slow this year.
I ordered based on what we had last year, because only 2 have aged out, and hopefully some will age in. So there's my faith. And I got a box full of tokens, and I was going to tell you guys tonight at our prayer thing. We prayed for curriculum, but we forgot to pray for the kids.
Yeah.
I remember a story about a mission, they were missionaries, and they came home and they wanted to set up an orphanage because orphanages were really, really needed, and it was England, I believe. And they prayed for food, they prayed for a house, they prayed for all those things, and it all came about, and they were all ready to, and there were no kids. And the wife sits there at night because no kids showed up. And she goes, honey, we prayed for this, but we didn't pray for the kids. And I remember that story.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, tonight
Yeah.
I'll say, pray for these kids. We got to have these kids come.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you Field of Dreams, if you you build it, they will come. So
They will come.
like we
We're
don't
feeding them. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what they're doing from day to day.
Right.
They never plan.
yeah.
And
I-
the younger generation.
Yeah.
wait till the last minute.
So
It'll be fine.
anyway, I hope we know why James harkens back to Abraham here, right? Because they all need a proof of what does genuine faith look like, and James is arguing, hey, the key is obedience. Take a look at Abraham, and we can see that materialize through his story in Genesis. The writer of Hebrews also harkens back to it and says, look, if you want to know what genuine faith looks like, please consider Abraham. And it's a tremendous work that only happens because of his obedience that stems out of his faith. You need all of that for it to work. So let's talk about, as we end our time, Rahab, because we're not just going to talk about Abraham. There's plenty of examples of what it means to show your faith off and to do it in the right way and to be somebody who possesses real faith and then puts it into action. So I want to read for you here James 2:25-26. This is how he ends this chapter. In the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction? As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. All right, window shopping. What stands out to you here?
I'm thinking, your first instinct would be, I'm not letting those people in my house. I don't want them in here.
Yeah.
But she did and overcame that. And
The story of Rahab is this. The siege basically is going to happen, and Rahab winds up protecting God's elect. And here in this story, and we're going to see it here in Joshua too, but we get this beautiful story of faithfulness through a unsuspecting person. Rahab is what?
Gentile prostitute.
She's a Gentile. She's a prostitute. When I hold Abraham up to you and I hold Rahab up to you, who would you expect to get this whole faithfulness business right? Abraham, right? He looks the part. He talks to God. God's made promises to him. Yeah, he fits the bill. He's a churchy person. He is exactly what we would expect. But Rahab is also someone who demonstrates genuine faith. And that's the key truth out of this, is that living faith produces visible obedience in every kind of person. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what your past is. It's transformative. You could be Rahab the prostitute, Rahab the Gentile, and still, by faith, do miraculous works for God. James ends with Rahab. It's a very different person from Abraham. Despite her background, she trusted God and acted on trust by protecting the spies. Together, Abraham and Rahab show genuine faith produces action regardless of a person's past or social status. Can I have everybody flip over to Joshua and we can get a trip back in time to a story that I know that maybe some of you know, but it's not exactly commonly taught in church. So Joshua 2. Joshua's in the beginning of the Bible. Towards the beginning of the Bible. Go find it. Yep. When you hit the book of Judges, yep. Keep going. Actually, I don't know if I can say that. Hey, look, Joshua 2. Hey, right there. Joshua 2.
I could know today and not know tomorrow.
Yep. After Deuteronomy. It's in the beginning. All right. Let's take a look here at Joshua 2. Then Joshua, the son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go, look over their land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. And at dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may still catch up to them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up to the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we hear it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all those who belong to them, that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the man assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us this land. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was a part of the city wall. And she said to them, "Go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there for 3 days until they return, then go on your way." Now the man had said to her, "This oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless, when we enter the land, you have tied this scarlet cord to the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all of your family to your house. If any of them goes outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads, and we will not be responsible. As for those who are in the house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath that you made us swear." "Agreed," she replied. "Let it be as you say." So she sent them away and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. When they left, they went into the hills and stayed there for 3 days, until the pursuers had searched all along the road and returned without finding them. Then the two men started back, and they went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told them everything that had happened to him. They said to Joshua, "The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. Of all the people are melting in fear because of us." So we have this crazy story. It's like Mission Impossible meets the Old Testament, and the spies wind up needing some help. This is the precursor to the very familiar Joshua story we know, the Battle of Jericho. This is the thing that sets it all up. And yet, here we have this discussion with a prostitute of all people, a Gentile, and it's kind of one of those deals where they're running down the street, and if you can like almost see it in the movies where the hands come out of the dark and go, and they wind up having this conversation inside of this house, and a bargain is struck. And it's incredible because she's not doing it out of a place of self-preservation. Remember, she tells them, "I know your God is real. I've heard the stories. I know who's in charge of heaven and on earth. Please spare us." It's an incredible leap of faith. She has no business doing what she's doing, and she winds up lying to city officials to save the spies that are eventually going to cause ruin for their city. And so I want to just put the ball in your court now, kind of knowing and getting that refresher there on Rahab. Why is Rahab's example so encouraging for believers?
No matter who you are, what you've done, as long as you believe and trust in God, He'll always have your back.
Isn't it something that in that moment where she's like striking up a bargain with probably these burly men of faraway land, that they're just not like going into the house swinging. I mean, that they have a job to do. They need to get back to Joshua. And yet, whether it be a divine hand from the Lord, calming hearts and minds in that house, they're like, "Nah, we should probably hear her out." How incredible is that? Like, God has her back. And when she winds up talking to the city officials, she weaves this story, and they believe her. She it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons. She passes a deception check, and it's this it's credible. And they go away. God makes all these like little miracles happen after she steps out in faith. It's wonderful. Anybody else? Why is Rahab's example so encouraging?
Well, she used her position, I'm sure, being a prostitute and having men in and out of her house. That's more than likely how she heard about all the stories.
Talk about God redeeming something just unfavorable.
And she just believed him.
Yeah.
Because, it says, I know, she says to them from 9 to 11.
Yeah.
And I know what the other two things are, so I'm like, well, right, Rahab, you go, girl.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that scarlet cord means a lot too.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
It's a great story. If you want to keep reading that, I encourage you to go read Joshua 3. Can I get somebody to go to Hebrews 11, verse 31, and then somebody else to Matthew 1:5, and we can kind of back up this claim of living faith produces visible obedience in every kind of person.
By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies.
Spoiler alert, Rahab lives. And sorry you had to hear it from the book of Hebrews. But yes, it all turns out exceptionally well. And exactly how God ordains it to be. God redeems this woman who is now doing a miraculous work for him. And the writer of Hebrews makes it very clear. Just if you use your last cross-reference, Hebrews 11, 17 through 19, the writer of Hebrews is following the same kind of structure James is, right? He used Abraham in verses 17 through 19 in chapter 11 of Hebrews to demonstrate what faith looks like. And then he goes, well, if that person's too churchy for you, here's Rahab. The writer of Hebrews does the same thing that James is doing right here. He goes, well, takes all kinds. What about Matthew 1:5?
Salmon was the father of Boaz by Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse. And Jesse,
So, spoiler alert, if you're not familiar with Rahab, she's kind of a big deal. She winds up becoming a key figure in what is the Davidic line. And like the story of God's redemption arc for all of humanity happens through Rahab. That's pretty sobering. So why does James use both Abraham and Rahab to make his point? We just unearthed the writer of Hebrews does the same thing. Why those two people?
because they represent the two sides, Jews and Gentiles. And he's talking to Jews. And he wants to explain that, hey, the Gentiles had a big part in this too.
Yeah, remember, this can't turn into a whole Roman situation where you have people looking down their noses at each other. Because if you remember back in James chapter 1, they're already sort of doing that. Let's not make it a racial thing and, nip that problem where it should be right away. God's going to use anybody and everybody for his purposes. And anybody and everybody can be redeemed. It doesn't matter how far gone you think you are. So any other answers to that? How does James use both Rahab and Abraham to make his point?
Well, he, he used a man and a woman.
Ah, that's a great point. Good insight. Yeah, let's. Doesn't matter if you're a man. It doesn't matter if you're a female. It at the end of the day, God's going to use us both for many good deeds in His name. Um, Now, remember the religious elite, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. How many women religious officials were there in the courts of the temple? That would be 0. There is no such thing as a deaconess in the Jewish in the Jewish courts. They don't have a place. And we read in Acts and Timothy and Titus, there most certainly is a place for women to carry out great deeds of God with authority. But yeah, man and woman, both in the Old Testament, making it happen on God's accord. Pretty cool. What evidence of living faith should be growing in a believer's life? So what are those things that, hey, if we're obedient to God and we're doing this thing right, what should be changing? What should be growing? How are you going to be changing from the inside out when we take this ever more seriously? Maybe you have in the past, and you can say, well, this is what's changed in my life. Don't go packing up. I want answers.
Thank you.
In verse 19, you believe that God is one. He's quoting the Shema from Deuteronomy. And the Shema was something that they always quoted. And one of the most important parts of the Shema is obedience to the word shows love for the Lord. And I think that's where our faith, our obedience, our trust, everything falls into place. Once you do what we talked about last week, that relationship, your relationship is, do you love the Lord?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a friend? Do you love your friends? Yes, I have friends that I just love. And I think love, and I wanted to bring that out, love, and that's my equation. Love, obedience comes from the love of God, and obedience shows your trust in God. These are the things that show that you do it because you love Him.
Yeah.
It shows your faith, it shows that you believe God, not that you believe in God.
Yeah. So our love for the Lord and what the Lord does grows along the way. Wonderful.